And that was the Paradine case. That was our last Selznick picture. This movie was a commercial failure. It ended up making only about half as much as it cost to film and produce. So, you know, boy, why was it so expensive? Well, one of the reasons it was so expensive was Alfred Hitchcock was being paid about $1,000 a day during production of this, and with all the rewrites and the shoots. One of the things too is that all the sets that were done, the court, all the trial cases in the Old Bailey, the court in London, that was all reproduced, that was all built in California and rebuilt at great expense. And they just spent a lot of money. Selznick spent a lot of money on this. And we'll talk about the court, Old Bailey, in a minute here. I also read that Ben Hecht was brought in, and they paid him $10,000 to write on the script a little bit and to try to fix it. But they brought him in and had to promise him that his name wouldn't be in the credits at all, because he felt that the script was deeply flawed. So that's one way to spend $10,000. So yeah, geez, with David O. Selznick meddling with rewriting the rewrites, the reshoots, the re-editing. Interesting little tidbit. He just got, you know, he was at this point in his life, he was having a real tough time making decisions. They couldn't come up with a title. He affixed something like 17 different titles during a 6-month period of this film. Titles including Mrs. Paradine Takes the Stand, The Lie, Heartbreak, The Great Passion, Guilty, The Woman Who Did the Killing, Hanging is Easy. You know, I mean, and then basically the story goes that only, you know, the same day, only hours before they had to ship the movie off to the world premiere in Hollywood, he finally decided on the Paradine case. How original, that's what the book was called. And when you notice the credits coming up, all of the credits are in this Gothic font, except for Valley, who had her own font, and the Paradine case, because apparently they had to slap this in at the last second. What a mess. So there you go. You know, it never ceases to amaze me how he just you know, didn't get it. I mean, what was he thinking? You know, we'll talk about that in a second. But as we say goodbye to David O. Selznick, you know, we have to say thanks for bringing Alfred Hitchcock to Hollywood. I'm sure he would have made it one way or another, and maybe the timing was perfect, and no one's complaining about the great movies we got. And you know, had the presence of mind over this 7-year deal to loan him out, realizing that he didn't want to work with him either. And I think ultimately Selznick paid him a compliment that said he's the only director that he trusted with a picture. And it's like, no, he didn't. He didn't trust anybody, but he at least said that about Hitchcock. And just to say that David O. Selznick, in his time, his heyday from 1934 to 1945, 8 of the movies that he produced were nominated for Best Picture. He did produce Gone with the Wind, which is very worthwhile, and Rebecca won Best Picture. You know, and the other thing I wanted to say about him is getting back to the movie we talked about last week, Duel in the Sun. If you like Gregory Peck, and some of you out there do, we don't, and you want to see Joseph Cotten and the woman Jennifer Jones, who Selznick was in the process of marrying at the time, you got to see Duel in the Sun, because and you know, it does take 3 hours, but this is David O. Selznick. You know, and as I said last week, 7 different directors were involved in the project, including David O. Selznick. Gregory Peck plays a bad guy. He plays a character named Lute, and you know, you got to see it. He's a horrible human being, his character is so interesting. You know, that's David O. Selznick. So we are for now, anyways, we are saying goodbye to David O. Selznick, and like I say, what was he thinking? You know, just getting back to that moment. Wow, with all the movies, with the exception of Mr. and Mrs. Smith, when he loaned him out, and he was allowed to do his own thing, and it's a small world, he knew that he was allowed to do his own thing, it worked. I mean, they made lots of money, they were successful. Why wouldn't he just let him do his own thing? It's anyone's guess. I've got my own guess, but who the heck knows? So anyways, we wanted to go over just a couple of pluses and minuses with this one. just a few of them. Some pluses were, you know, early on Diane noticed the direction, the camera work. Even really early on when they were showing Mrs. Paradine, or they were telling Mrs. Paradine what they were charging her with, the crimes they were charging her with, and the camera panning around her during that was very, very good. They also mentioned at the beginning when, well, it was mentioned that Charles Coburn's character was talking to Gregory Peck and talking about how she was this woman of easy virtue. That reminded me of the movie Easy Virtue that we saw. And at that moment too, his wife was watching him when Gregory Peck was basically proclaiming his love for Mrs. Paradine at that point. She was watching through bars, and we've seen that before, the point of view shots, and I don't know, that was interesting for me. So, and speaking of Charles Coburn, every time he was on, he just really reminded me of the movie The More the Merrier. We have to mention it again. He is hilarious in that movie. It's not what you would think. God, remember how funny he was? Yeah, he's so cute. He's really, really good in that. So. And the perfect cameo, you know, there's Alfred Hitchcock in the middle of this movie, so we love that one with the double bass, and we'll see that again. I also noticed that when Gregory Peck's character was in that inn, he asked for hotel room number 17, so whatever. And Louis Jourdan, he was awesome. I mean, you can definitely see he had a great career, although he's charming as heck in the movie Gigi. But a great Bond villain. So, and who doesn't love seeing Leo G. Carroll in a pretty big role? I mean, yeah, we saw him as like the bad guy in Spellbound, but he had a pretty big role in this one, so that was good. In fact, I didn't even notice him right away. I haven't seen this movie for a long time, and Diane noticed him. I didn't, so it's almost like a cameo. And as we get to the minuses, you know, where do we begin? You know, Diane noticed right away it doesn't really work with Gregory Peck. He has this great, fun, loving relationship with this cute blonde wife in this perfect house. Why on earth would it just doesn't make any sense? Why would he fall in love with this? It just doesn't work. I mean, why not start again and make it so you know, she's a little bit cold or something? I mean, that was just dumb. And you know, with Charles Laughton being in this movie, he's pretty cool, but what a lousy entrance for him. I mean, Louis Jourdan got a great entrance. You couldn't even see his face. He was all mysterious in the shadows when we first see him. And Charles Laughton suddenly just chewing on dinner. And what is Gregory Peck as a lawyer, as a you know, defense lawyer, having dinner with the judge on this trial? I mean, yeah, both of them were. I mean, it's both Charles Coburn and, you know, so is that ethical to be dining and hanging out with the judge of your future case you're doing? So that was dumb. And you know, with Ethel Barrymore, oh darn, we meant to look up and see Ethel Barrymore being nominated for a Best Supporting Actress. I'm sorry, this movie was 114 minutes long. What was she in the movie for? 14 minutes at most? More like 5 minutes. So was she great? You bet. So anyways, those are our complaints for this movie. And I don't think we love Gregory Peck. I know Diane doesn't like Gregory Peck, and I know some of you out there do, and we don't. So that's it for us. You know, that's good. Oh, I also wanted to very briefly talk about, so Alfred Hitchcock is planning, he's been plotting and planning during this movie to make his own production company called Transatlantic Pictures with another fellow, and the big plan is to make movies both in Hollywood and England, go back and forth, and be his own producer, pay for his own movies, figure out the financing all by himself. And boy, we're going to talk a little bit about that next week and the week after. And speaking of next week, we've got the movie Rope, 1948, which is really, really cool. It's also going to be our very first movie in color. We're not done with black and white. I can think of the wrong man. Everybody knows Psycho is in black and white. But this will be the first movie in color. It's interesting that Paradine case, with its high budget and high expectations, was not in color, because, I mean, Gone with the Wind was 1939 was in color. Wizard of Oz 1939 was not in color. You're spending all this money, why not make, maybe because they wanted to make it more rustic and old-fashioned, who knows, it was in black and white, and that works sometimes, and I don't know, who knows whether that would have helped with this. So good. So we're done with 1947. One Best Picture in 1947 was a movie called Gentleman's Agreement, starring Gregory Peck. And it's a little dated. It's sort of very heavy-handedly deals with anti-Semitism in present day America in 1947. Sort of worthwhile again if you like Gregory Peck. I think you should watch Duel in the Sun if you like Gregory Peck. And obviously, as Diane mentioned, we love him to death in To Kill a Mockingbird, where he's Atticus Finch. Also at trial. He's the trial lawyer or something like that. Yeah. So whatever. I haven't seen it in a long time. So anyways, okay. So good. So we're on with the next movie for next week. We really look forward to it, and I would be really curious to see what everyone out there thought about the PARADINE case and had their thoughts about O. Selznick, who technically, like we alluded to earlier, we're not really done with Selznick. Not really. So good. So we'll see you next week for Rope. And so from our couch to yours, we will see you next week.